The stars looked different today. Admiral Wan Hook had spent 30 years staring into the endless darkness of space. He had watched stars being born, planets torn apart, and fleets vanish into hyperspace. Experience had taught him something no academy ever could. Sometimes, space warned you before disaster arrived. Today, it felt like the universe itself was holding its breath. A sharp alarm shattered the silence on the bridge. Lieutenant Park Suna looked up from her sensor console, her fingers flying across the glowing controls. "Sir," she said, her voice suddenly tense, "I'm detecting multiple contacts from our outer sensor network." Wan Hook crossed the bridge without rushing. Panic was contagious. A calm commander kept people alive. "What have you got?" Suna enlarged the sensor display. The screen filled with hundreds of glowing markers. At first, Wan Hook thought the computer had malfunctioned. Then the system finished its calculations. His expression hardened. "Run another scan." "Already did, sir." The computer confirmed the results. No errors. No false signals. Just ships. An impossible number of them. "How many?" the Admiral asked quietly. Suna swallowed. 847 confirmed vessels. The bridge fell completely silent. They exited faster than light travel, approximately 6 hours ago. She zoomed in on the formation. "They're holding position just beyond our primary sensor range. They aren't transmitting. They aren't moving. They're waiting." For the first time in years, Admiral Wan Hook felt a chill run down his spine. 847 warships. That wasn't an exploration fleet. It wasn't a diplomatic mission. It wasn't even a blockade. It was an invasion force. A fleet built for conquest. The Admiral slowly folded his hands behind his back. Every officer on the bridge looked toward him. Waiting. Trusting. He couldn't afford to show what he was thinking. "Open a secure channel." "To Captain Lee Gina." Immediately. Seconds later, the main communication screen flickered to life. Captain Lee Gina appeared wearing the dark gray uniform of Earth's Deep Space Reconnaissance Corps. Despite her young age, her calm expression inspired confidence. She had spent 3 years patrolling the unexplored frontier. If anyone could approach an unknown fleet unnoticed, it was her. Before Wan Hook could speak, she did. "Admiral, we've already detected the contacts." A holographic star map appeared beside her. "My ship is changing course. I'm moving in for visual confirmation." Wan Hook allowed himself the smallest nod. "Good. My vessel is small enough to avoid detection," Lee continued. "If they're focused on larger targets, we can get close before they notice us." Several officers exchanged nervous glances. One mistake, and her entire crew would disappear without a trace. Wan Hook looked directly into the captain's eyes. "I need answers. Who are they? What do they want? And why are 847 warships sitting on our doorstep?" Captain Lee gave a determined nod. "You'll have your answers, sir." She paused for only a second. "But I have a bad feeling about this." "So do I," Wan Hook admitted. "Proceed with extreme caution. If anything looks wrong..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Lee understood. The transmission ended. Silence returned to the bridge. Outside the enormous observation window, the stars looked peaceful, beautiful, unchanged. Yet everyone aboard knew the truth. Somewhere beyond that darkness, 847 unknown warships were waiting, and nobody knew whether they had come to negotiate or to erase humanity from the galaxy. Then, without warning, one of the enemy ships powered up. A pulse of energy spread across space. The sensor alarms screamed. Lieutenant Park's eyes widened. "Sir, they've just detected us." Every light on the bridge turned crimson. The first move had been made. "What can you tell me so far?" Lee looked at something off-screen before answering. "They're big, sir. Really big. The smallest ships in their fleet are twice the size of our destroyers, and they're arranged in what looks like a battle formation. Any attempts at communication? Nothing yet." But Lee paused as someone handed her a datapad. "Sir, we're getting a transmission now. It's on all frequencies." The bridge of the monitoring station fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. First contact with an alien species was something humanity had prepared for, but never quite expected to happen like this. "Put it through," Juan Hewick ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was strange, with sounds that human throats could never make, but the universal translator kicked in after a few seconds. "Primitive inhabitants of this system," the voice said, cold and commanding. "I am Fleet Commander Thexara of the Valari Confederation. Your species has been marked for incorporation into our empire. You will surrender all military assets immediately, and prepare your worlds for processing." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Processing. That didn't sound good. "You have 72 of your planet's rotational periods to comply. Any resistance will result in the implementation of cleansing protocols. This is your only warning." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in total silence. Captain Lee's voice came through the comm, quiet but steady. "Admiral, are you getting readings on their technology?" Wan Hu looked at the technical officer, who nodded quickly. "Standard fusion drives, plasma weapon signatures, and kinetic barriers. Advanced, but nothing we haven't seen in our theoretical models. So, they're using conventional physics," the Admiral said slowly. "That's something at least, sir." Lieutenant Park spoke up from her station. "Should I send word to Earth Defense Command?" "Already done," said Quan Hook. "But patch me through to them again. Admiral Park Minho needs to know exactly what we're dealing with." The communication to Earth took several minutes to establish. When Admiral Park Minho's face appeared on screen, Quan Hook could see the worry in the younger man's eyes. "How bad is it, Hook?" Park Minho asked without introduction. "Bad enough. 800 ships, all armed, all in battle formation. They've given us 3 days to surrender, or face what they call cleansing protocols." Park Minho was quiet for a long moment. "What's your assessment of their technology?" "Conventional, but advanced. They're probably a few hundred years ahead of where we were before the breakthrough projects. Fusion power, plasma weapons, standard shielding systems, so they don't know about the new ships. No indication that they do. As far as I can tell, they think we're still using chemical rockets and nuclear weapons." Park Minho almost smiled at that. "Well, they're in for a surprise. Keep monitoring them, but don't engage. We're going to handle this a different way." "What did you have in mind? Something they won't expect?" After the communication ended, Quan Hook walked over to the main viewing screen. The alien fleet was too far away to see with normal sensors, but the computer could create an image based on their energy signatures. It was an impressive sight. The ships were arranged in a perfect wall formation, stretching across thousands of kilometers of space. Each vessel glowed with its own internal power, creating a constellation of threat in the darkness. "Captain Lee," he called out to the doctor, "how close can you get without them noticing?" "I'm already pushing it, sir. Their sensors are good, but my ship is designed for stealth work. I can probably get close enough to count their weapon ports." "Do it. But be careful. We need to know exactly what we're up against." Captain Lee's ship, the Docto, was one of humanity's newer vessels. Not the newest, but new enough to have systems the aliens had probably never seen before. It could mask its energy signature and move quietly through space. "Sir," called out Technical Officer Kim Woo-won from his station, "I'm analyzing their formation pattern. It's designed for maximum intimidation, but it has some tactical weaknesses, such as, they're spread out to look bigger, but that means they can't concentrate their fire effectively, and they're positioned to attack planets, not to defend against a mobile threat." Quan Hook nodded. The aliens were confident, maybe overconfident. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would either surrender immediately or put up a weak fight with inferior technology. They had no idea what humanity had been working on for the past decade. "Sir," Lieutenant Park called out again, "I'm getting reports from other monitoring stations. The aliens have scout ships moving through the outer system. They're scanning our planets and defense platforms." "Let them look," said the Admiral. "They're going to see exactly what we want them to see." The old defense platforms and early warning systems would register on alien sensors easily enough. They would see bases on Mars and the Moon, orbital stations around Earth, and the scattered patrol ships of the conventional fleet. What they wouldn't see were the research facilities hidden in the asteroid belt, or the construction yards in the outer system where humanity's real surprises were being built. "Admiral," Captain Lee's voice came through the calm, tense with excitement. "You need to see what I'm looking at." "What is it, Captain?" "Their ships are beautiful, sir, like living crystals floating in space. But they're built for intimidation, not efficiency. These aliens are used to winning through fear. Quanhook smiled grimly. Then they've picked the wrong species to try and frighten. Admiral Park Min-ho stared at the holographic display showing the alien fleet. Even from Earth, the threat was real and immediate. 800 ships meant millions of alien soldiers all ready to turn humanity into whatever processed meant. How long until they reach Earth if they decide to move? He asked the tactical officer. At their current engine signatures, about 18 hours, sir, replied Commander An Soo-young. But they're not moving. They're just sitting there waiting. They want us to be afraid, said Dr. Yoon Sora, from her position at the science station. Fear makes people make bad decisions. Park Min-ho had worked with Dr. Yoon for 5 years on the classified projects. She was brilliant, maybe the smartest person he'd ever met. If she said the aliens were using psychological warfare, she was probably right. What's the status on the Indomitable? He asked quietly. Dr. Yoon's eyes lit up. Fully operational. Captain Nam June and his crew finished the final tests yesterday. The ship is ready for anything. Good, because we're about to find out how good our new technology really is. The door to the command center opened, and Captain Choi Daeon walked in. Her patrol ship, the Sejong, had been monitoring the outer planets for any signs of alien activity. Admiral, we have a problem, she said, setting down a data pad. The aliens have scout ships everywhere. They're scanning our defensive positions, our industrial centers, even our communication networks. Let me guess, said Park Min-ho. They're seeing exactly what we expected them to see. Yes, sir. Old fusion reactors, chemical rockets, basic energy weapons. As far as they can tell, we're maybe 100 years past splitting the atom. Dr. Yoon laughed softly. If only they knew. The truth was that humanity had made some incredible breakthroughs in the past decade. The discovery of how to manipulate gravity had changed everything. Once they figured out how to bend space and time, the old rules stopped applying. Sir, Commander Ann spoke up from her station. We're getting requests from every government on Earth. They want to know what we're going to do about the alien threat. Park Min-ho had been expecting this. Politicians always wanted simple answers to complicated problems. Tell them we're handling it and that they should keep the population calm. What about the other colonies? Marcel Roa Titan. Same message. We have a plan. Captain Choi looked confused. Sir, with respect. One ship against 800 doesn't sound like much of a plan. That depends on the ship, said Dr. Yoon with a smile. Park Min-ho walked over to the secure communication terminal. It was time to contact the one person who could make this work. Captain Namjoon was somewhere out in the outer system running final tests on humanity's greatest achievement. Captain Nam, this is Admiral Park. How quickly can you get to the Kepler system? The response came back immediately. Give me 6 hours, sir. The new drive system makes distance almost meaningless. Good. You're going to have 800 alien ships to deal with. They think we're primitives with chemical rockets. Well, they're about to learn differently. Dr. Yoon stepped closer to the communication terminal. Nam, remember that this is first contact. How we handle this will determine how the galaxy sees humanity for generations. Understood, Doctor. I'll try not to start a galactic war on our first day. After the communication ended, Park Min-ho called for a meeting with the Solar Defense Council. Representatives from every human world would need to know what was about to happen. The meeting room filled quickly. Governors from Mars and the outer colonies, military commanders from the various fleets, and senior scientists from the research programs. All of them looked worried. Ladies and gentlemen, Park Min-ho began, we are facing the first major test of human space power. An alien fleet has entered our territory and demanded our surrender. Governor Lee Min-soo from Mars spoke first. What are our options? Do we negotiate? Negotiation requires that both sides have something to offer, said Dr. Yoon. These aliens aren't interested in trade or diplomacy. They want conquest, so we fight? Asked Commander Kim Tae-won from the Jupiter Defense Force. 800 ships against our entire fleet. Not our entire fleet, Park Min-ho said carefully. One ship. The room erupted in worried voices. Everyone started talking at once, asking how one ship could possibly handle such a massive threat. Please, Park Min-ho called for quiet. Let me explain. He activated the holographic projector in the center of the room. The image that appeared made everyone fall silent. It was a ship, unlike anything they had ever seen. This is the UES Indomitable, he said. The first of a new generation of human vessels. It incorporates technology that most of you don't have clearance to know about. The ship in the hologram looked almost organic with smooth curves and no visible engines or weapons. It seemed to shimmer slightly, as if it wasn't quite solid. "How does it work?" asked Governor Park Jiajuan from Europa. Dr. Yoon stepped forward. "The Indomitable doesn't follow the same rules as conventional ships. It can manipulate gravity, bend space and time, and exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." "That sounds like science fiction," said Commander Kim. "So did spaceflight." "Once upon a time," replied Dr. Yoon, "the universe is stranger than we thought. We've just learned how to use that strangeness." Park Min-ho brought up another image showing the alien fleet formation. The aliens are using technology that's advanced but conventional. Fusion drives, plasma weapons, kinetic barriers. They're probably a few hundred years ahead of where we were before our breakthrough, but not ahead of where we are now, added Dr. Yoon. "What exactly is Captain Nam going to do?" asked Governor Lee. "He's going to show them that humanity is not what they expected," said Park Min-ho. "And hopefully, he's going to do it without firing a shot." The truth was that the Indomitable could probably destroy the entire alien fleet in minutes. Its quantum weapons operated on principles that made conventional armor and shields useless. But destroying 800 ships and millions of aliens would send the wrong message to the galaxy. "Sir," Commander Ann's voice came through the intercom. "We're getting another transmission from the alien fleet. Put it through." The same cold voice filled the room. "Humans of Sol system, 50 hours remain until the deadline. We have observed your primitive defenses and find them inadequate. Surrender now, and your processing will be efficient." The transmission ended, leaving the room in silence. "Efficient processing," muttered Governor Park. "That doesn't sound pleasant." "It's not meant to," said Dr. Yoon. "They're trying to make us panic and surrender without a fight." Park Min-ho looked around the room at the worried faces of humanity's leaders. They were scared, and they had every right to be. First contact with a hostile alien species was everyone's nightmare scenario. "I know this is frightening," he said, "but I need you to trust in what we've built. Captain Nam and the Indomitable represent the best of human ingenuity and determination. When this is over, the galaxy will know that humanity is not to be underestimated." As the meeting broke up, Dr. Yoon stayed behind to talk with the Admiral. "Are you sure about this plan?" she asked quietly. "No," Park Min-ho admitted. "But it's the best chance we have. If we fight them with conventional ships, we'll lose. If we surrender, we'll be enslaved or worse. The Indomitable is our only option. And if something goes wrong, then humanity's first impression on the galactic stage will be its last." Commander Thexara stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display show the human star system. 2 days had passed since the ultimatum, and still no response from the primitive species below. "Any change in their defensive posture?" he asked his tactical officer. "None, Commander," replied Sub-Leader. "They maintain the same patrol routes, the same energy signatures. Their largest ships are still smaller than our escort vessels." The nodded with satisfaction. The humans were clearly terrified into paralysis. He had seen it before with dozens of other species. When faced with overwhelming force, most civilizations simply froze up. "What about their industrial capacity?" he asked. "Primitive fusion reactors, basic manufacturing centers on several worlds. Nothing that suggests advanced military production," said Navigation Officer Kexmore from his station. "They appear to be a young species, recently expanded beyond their home world." Perfect. Young species adapt well to Imperial guidance. The truth was that the Valari Confederation specialized in conquering developing civilizations. They would arrive with overwhelming force demand surrender, and then spend decades processing the conquered species into useful members of the Empire. It was efficient and profitable. Young civilizations had resources, but lacked the military power to resist. The humans fit the pattern perfectly. Commander called out Communications Officer Rikana. "We're receiving scout reports from the inner system. What do they say?" "The humans have defensive platforms around their home world, and several colonies. Energy weapons, kinetic barriers, fusion missiles. Standard technology for their development level." The Thera smiled. Standard meant predictable. Predictable meant easy to defeat. "Any signs of advanced physics research, gravitational manipulation, quantum mechanics applications?" "Non-detected, sir. Their energy signatures are consistent with fusion-based technology." "Then we proceed as planned. Begin moving the fleet into position for the final ultimatum." The massive alien fleet began to move, 800 ships flowing through space like a deadly river. Each vessel was a work of art, shaped like living crystals that caught and reflected the light of distant stars. The Valari had learned long ago that beauty was a weapon. Conquered species found it harder to resist when their conquerors were magnificent to look at. Fear and awe worked together to break the will to fight. Commander Subleader Valari spoke up from her station. How do you want to handle the final assault if they refuse to surrender? Standard cleansing protocol. Disable their orbital defenses, neutralize their military vessels, then begin atmospheric bombardment of their major cities. Once they see we can destroy their civilization, they'll surrender. And if they don't, then we follow through. Dead worlds serve as excellent examples for other species considering resistance. Lieutenant Kim Woo, the youngest officer on the bridge, looked uncomfortable with the casual discussion of genocide, but he kept his opinions to himself. The Valari military did not tolerate weakness, sir, called out sensor operator Dexlani. I'm picking up a single contact moving from the direction of the human home system. Vexar looked at the tactical display. One ship moving at what appeared to be standard fusion drive speeds. Finally, he said with satisfaction, they're sending an ambassador to negotiate surrender terms. Should we hail them? Asked Rexana. Let them come to us. Fear makes the negotiation process much smoother. The single human ship continued its approach, taking what seemed like hours to cross the distance between the star system's edge and the alien fleet position. The Valari used the time to position their ships for maximum psychological impact. Put the fleet into Intimidation Formation 7, ordered Thexara. I want that human ship to feel completely surrounded when it arrives. 800 ships moved with practiced precision, creating a spherical formation with the approaching human vessel at its center. Every weapon system was powered up and ready, creating an energy signature that would be visible on any scanner. Contact is still approaching, sir, reported Dexani. But there's something odd about its energy signature. What kind of odd? It's inconsistent. Sometimes I can read it clearly. Sometimes it barely shows up on sensors at all. Subleader Valari frowned. Primitive stealth technology, possibly. Or their engines are malfunctioning. Texara wasn't worried. One ship with engine problems was hardly a threat to his massive fleet. Continue monitoring, and prepare to accept their surrender. The human ship continued its approach, moving steadily toward the center of the alien formation. To the Valari, it appeared to be a small, unremarkable vessel, probably a diplomatic courier. Sir, Lieutenant Kim Woo called out from his position at the sensor array. The energy readings are getting stranger. It's like the ship is there and not there at the same time. Explain. I can see it on visual sensors, but energy scans keep fluctuating. Sometimes it shows up as a normal fusion signature. Sometimes it doesn't register at all. The was, beginning to feel the first hint of unease. In 30 years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts. And his instincts were telling him something was wrong. How close is it now? 2,000 kilometers in closing. Sir, open a communication channel. Let's get this surrender negotiation started. Channel open, Commander. Human vessel, this is Fleet Commander Thexara of the Valari Confederation. You are completely surrounded and outgunned. Prepare to receive our terms for your species' surrender. There was a long pause before the human response came back. This is Captain Nam Jion of the United Earth ship Indomitable. You have entered human space without permission and threatened our people. You have 1 minute to withdraw your fleet, or we will consider you hostile. The bridge fell silent. Subleader Valari was the first to speak. Did that human just threaten us? They couldn't believe what he had heard. 1 ship against 800, and the human captain was making demands. Human captain, he said, trying to keep the amusement out of his voice. You appear to be confused about your situation. You are 1 small ship, surrounded by the most powerful fleet in this sector of the galaxy. Perhaps you should reconsider your position. I'm exactly where I need to be, came the calm reply. Sir, Lieutenant Kim Woo called out urgently. The human ship just disappeared from sensors. What do you mean disappeared? It's not there anymore. Visual contact is gone. Energy signature is gone. Everything. The Thera looked at the main screen. The space where the human ship had been was now empty. Find it, he ordered. Ships don't just vanish. All 800 vessels in the fleet began scanning frantically. Advanced sensors swept through space looking for any trace of the missing human ship. Commander called out Dexlani, her voice tight with confusion. I'm reading something impossible. What is it? The human ship is right here, sir. In the exact center of our formation. Thexara looked at the tactical display. There, surrounded by 800 alien vessels, was a single contact that hadn't been there a moment before. How did it get there? I don't know, sir. It just appeared. The human ship was now visible again, sitting calmly in the middle of the Valari fleet, as if it had always been there. But that was impossible. There was no way a ship could move through their formation without being detected. All weapons, target that vessel, Texera ordered, his voice sharp with authority. Sir, called out Weapons Officer Nexcala. Targeting systems can't get a lock. It's like the ship is shifting position constantly. What do you mean? The computer calculates a firing solution, but by the time weapons are ready, the target has moved. Not moved like normal movement, but moved like it was never where we thought it was. Texera felt the first real stirring of fear. In 30 years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like this. Human captain, he said into the communication system, what kind of technology are you using? The response came back immediately calm and confident. The kind you haven't seen before, Commander. You now have 30 seconds to begin withdrawing your fleet. Around the bridge, alarm klaxons began to sound as sensors registered energy patterns that didn't match anything in their databases. Captain Nam Jun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as the alien fleet scrambled to understand what they were seeing. The ship's quantum sensors showed him everything. 800 vessels, all trying desperately to target something they couldn't properly detect. All systems are green, Captain reported Engineer Omeni from her station. The dimensional anchor is holding steady, and the quantum field is responding perfectly. Excellent work, Nam replied. The Indomitable was operating exactly as designed. Dr. Yoon's team had outdone themselves. Sir, called out Navigation Officer Li Wu-jin, the aliens are trying to achieve weapons lock, but their targeting systems can't handle our quantum signature. As expected, their technology operates on single-dimensional physics. They can't target something that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The truth was that the Indomitable didn't follow the same rules as normal ships. Instead of moving through space, it moved through space-time itself. The ship could exist in several locations at once, making it impossible for conventional weapons to hit. Captain said, Weapons Officer Anti Taeyang from his position. I have targeting solutions on all 800 alien vessels. Their shields and armor are designed to stop conventional weapons, and our weapons are anything but conventional, Nam said with a slight smile. But remember, we're not here to start a war. We're here to end one before it begins. Communications Officer Park Shanju looked up from her station. Sir, the alien commander is trying to contact us again. Put him through. The alien voice came through the speakers, but now it carried a note of uncertainty that hadn't been there before. Human captain, I demand an explanation. What kind of technology are you using? Nam considered his response carefully. First impressions mattered, and this conversation would determine how the galaxy saw humanity for generations to come. Commander Thexora, he said, humanity has learned some things about the universe that you haven't discovered yet. We prefer to use this knowledge for peaceful purposes. Peaceful? You've invaded the center of my fleet. Your fleet invaded our space first. We're simply demonstrating that your assumptions about humanity were incorrect. On the bridge of the Indomitable, the AI system called Hanule was monitoring all communications across the alien fleet. The artificial intelligence had been designed to work with the ship's quantum systems, giving it capabilities that even the crew didn't fully understand. Captain Hanule's voice came from the ship's speakers. I'm intercepting alien communications. They're trying to understand our energy signature, but their science can't explain what they're seeing. What are they saying? Many things. But the general consensus is confusion and fear. They've never encountered technology that operates outside conventional physics. Engineer Omi looked up from her instruments. Captain, the aliens are charging their weapon systems. All 800 ships are powering up for a coordinated attack. Let them, Nam said calmly, and prepare a demonstration. Weapons Officer Anting's hands moved over his controls. Quantum cannons are ready, sir. Should I target their flagship? No. Target the empty space next to it. Sir, trust me. The Indomitable's quantum weapons weren't like anything the universe had seen before. Instead of firing energy or projectiles, they manipulated the fundamental forces of reality itself. Matter, energy, space, and time could all be reshaped with the right application of quantum mechanics. Fire, Nam ordered. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for centuries. A beam of impossibly bright light shot out from the Indomitable, not toward any of the alien ships, but toward a point in empty space near the alien flagship. When the beam hit, reality hiccuped. Space itself twisted and folded, creating a sphere of nothingness, where matter simply ceased to exist. Then, just as suddenly, the sphere collapsed, and normal spacetime returned. The effect lasted only seconds, but it was long enough for every alien in the fleet to understand that they were facing something completely beyond their experience. What was that? The alien commander's voice came through the communication system, no longer commanding, but almost pleading. A demonstration? Nam replied simply. That was our weapon system firing at minimum power into empty space. I wanted you to see what would happen if we were actually trying to hurt someone. On 800 alien ships, silence fell, as crews tried to process what they had witnessed. Their sensors had recorded the impossible, the complete destruction and recreation of spacetime itself. Commander Thexar's voice came back much quieter than before. That's not possible. Nothing can manipulate spacetime directly. Commander, the universe is much stranger than your species has discovered. Humanity has learned to work with forces that most civilizations don't even know exist. Engineer Omeni reported from her station. Captain, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations across the alien fleet. They're trying to analyze what we just did. Let them try. Nam said, Hell. What are you hearing from their communications? Panic, Captain. Their scientists are reporting that our demonstration violated several fundamental laws of physics as they understand them. Many are recommending immediate retreat. Navigation Officer Li Wu-jin looked up from his instruments. Sir, some of the alien ships are beginning to move. It looks like they're trying to put distance between themselves and us. Smart move, Nam said. But we're not done yet. Captain, Communications Officer Park called out. The alien commander is hailing us again. Let's hear what he has to say. Commander Thexar's voice came through, and the change in tone was remarkable. The arrogant conqueror had been replaced by someone who was clearly out of his depth. Human Captain, perhaps we should discuss this situation. I'm listening, Commander. My fleet was sent here based on intelligence reports that suggested humanity was a primitive species with limited technology. Clearly, our intelligence was wrong. Very wrong, Nam agreed. Would it be possible to negotiate a withdrawal? Nam looked around his bridge at his crew. Each of them represented the best of humanity, intelligent, dedicated, and committed to protecting their species without unnecessary violence. Commander, he said finally, humanity doesn't want war with your people or anyone else. We want to explore the galaxy, learn from other species, and contribute to galactic civilization. But the technology you possess will be used for peaceful purposes, as long as we're left in peace. Attack us and you'll discover that we can defend ourselves quite effectively. I need to consult with my superiors. You have 10 minutes, Commander. After that, I'm going to assume you've chosen to remain hostile. The communication ended, leaving the bridge of the Indomitable quiet, except for the hum of incredibly advanced machinery. Sir, Weapons Officer Ann said quietly. What if they decide to fight anyway? Nam was quiet for a moment before answering. Then we'll have to show them exactly how advanced human technology really is. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Captain Engineer Omeni called out. I'm reading some interesting energy patterns from their fleet. It looks like they're having heated discussions on almost every ship. Democracy in action, Nam said with a slight smile. They're realizing that everything they thought they knew about the galaxy just changed. Sir, Hanul's voice came from the speakers. I'm monitoring subspace communications between the alien fleet and what appears to be their home government. The word impossible is being used frequently. Truth was that the Indomitable represented a revolution in human technology that even its crew didn't fully understand. Dr. Yoon's research team had unlocked secrets of the universe that most species would take millennia to discover. Now, 800 alien ships were trying to decide whether to retreat from something they couldn't fight or to attack something they couldn't hurt. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not what anyone expected. The silence across the Volari fleet was unlike anything Commander Thexara had experienced in his long military career. 800 ships, millions of crew members, all trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Status report, he ordered, his voice barely steady. Subleader Volari looked at her instruments with confusion. Sir, our best scientists are saying that what the human ship just did should be impossible. They manipulated spacetime itself, and our weapon systems still can't achieve target lock. The human vessel appears to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Our targeting computers can't handle the quantum signatures. Lieutenant Kim Woo spoke up from his sensor station. Commander, I'm reading energy patterns from the human ship that don't match anything in our databases. It's like they're using forces we haven't discovered yet. Dexera felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest. Genuine fear. Not fear for his own life, but fear for his entire civilization. If one human ship could do this, what could their entire fleet accomplish? Sir, called out Communications Officer Rikana. We're receiving urgent messages from High Command. They want to know what's happening here. What are you telling them? The truth, sir, that we've encountered a species with technology far beyond our understanding. And their response, they don't believe it. They couldn't blame them. 24 hours ago, he wouldn't have believed it either. The Valari Confederation had spent centuries conquering lesser species. The idea that they might encounter something more advanced was almost unthinkable. Commander Sublir Valari said quietly, "What are our orders?" It was a good question. The standard protocol for this situation didn't exist, because this situation had never existed before. The Valari had never encountered a species that could challenge them technologically. Sir, Lieutenant Kim Woo called out urgently. The human ship is doing something new. On the main screen, the impossible human vessel began to change. What had appeared to be a single ship suddenly became multiple images, each one slightly transparent, all occupying the same space. What are we looking at? Thex demanded. I think, Kim Woo said slowly, we're seeing the ship existing in multiple dimensions at the same time. That's impossible. So was everything else we've seen today. The human captain's voice came through the communication system, calm and patient. Commander Thexera, your 10 minutes are almost up. Have you reached a decision? Thexer looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were experienced military officers, veterans of dozens of campaigns. Now they all looked like frightened children. Human captain, he said finally, I need to understand what we're dealing with. How advanced is your technology? Advanced enough to defend ourselves, Commander. The question is, whether you're wise enough to accept that. You're telling me that one ship can defeat my entire fleet. I'm telling you that this conversation is the only reason your fleet still exists. The words hit the era like a physical blow. In his long career, no one had ever spoken to him with such casual confidence about military superiority. Sir, Weapons Officer Nexkala called out from her station. I'm analyzing the energy readings from their demonstration. If they had targeted our ships instead of empty space, what? There would be nothing left, sir. No debris, no energy signature, nothing. They could make our ships simply stop existing. Thexara felt the last of his confidence drain away. He had brought 800 ships to conquer a primitive species, and instead found himself facing something that could erase his entire fleet from existence. Commander, the human captain's voice continued, let me make something clear. Humanity doesn't want war with your people. We want to explore the galaxy, make friends, and learn from other civilizations. Then why demonstrate such terrible weapons? Because sometimes the best way to prevent a war is to show that you can win it quickly. Sir, Subleader Valari whispered, we should consider withdrawal. Agreed, Texara said quietly, then louder into the communication system. Captain Nam, what terms would you require for our withdrawal? Simple ones, Commander. Your fleet leaves human space immediately and doesn't return with hostile intent. In exchange, we won't follow you home. The threat was delivered so casually that it took a moment for Thexera to understand the implications. The human ship could follow them home across interstellar distances to the heart of the Valari Confederation. You could track us, Commander. We're having this conversation while sitting in the middle of your fleet. Tracking you across a few light years wouldn't be difficult. Sir, Navigation Officer Sexmore called out. I'm reading strange gravitational fluctuations around the human ship. It's like they're bending space itself. Because they are, Lieutenant Kim Woo said quietly. They've mastered gravitational manipulation. That's how they appeared in our formation, without being detected. Thexer closed his eyes for a moment, trying to process the magnitude of what his fleet had stumbled into. The humans had technology that violated everything the Valari understood about physics. Captain Nam, he said finally, if we withdraw, what assurance do we have that humanity won't use this technology aggressively? The same assurance any civilization has. Commander, you'll have to trust that we mean what we say about preferring peace. And if other species threaten humanity, then they'll face the same choice you're facing now. Sir, Communications Officer Rexana called out. High Command is demanding an immediate status report. Dexar looked at the tactical display showing his 800 ships surrounding one impossible human vessel. How could he possibly explain this to his superiors? Tell them, he said slowly, that the intelligence reports about human technology were completely wrong. Tell them we've encountered a species that has mastered physics in ways we don't understand, and our mission failed. Completely and utterly failed. Commander, the human captain's voice came through the speakers again. I'm going to need your decision now. Thexara took a deep breath. In 30 years of military service, he had never ordered a retreat, but he had also never faced extinction before. Captain Nam, the Valari fleet will withdraw from human space immediately. You have my word that we will not return with hostile intent. Thank you, Commander. That's the right decision. Before we go, Thexara said, can you tell me how long humanity has possessed this technology? Not long, Commander, but long enough to know how to use it. And you developed it independently. Humanity has always been good at solving problems, Commander. When faced with the possibility of conquest, we found a solution. As the alien fleet began to turn away from human space, Thexar realized that everything had changed. The galaxy was no longer a place where the strong conquered the weak. Now there was a new player, one that could rewrite the rules of physics itself. Sir, Subleader Valari said quietly, what do we tell the Confederation? The truth, Texar replied, that we found something in human space that we were not prepared for, and that anyone planning to threaten humanity should think very carefully about the consequences. As the last alien ship disappeared into hyperspace, the human vessel called Indomitable remained alone in the void, a silent guardian, watching over a species that had just announced its arrival on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible.